So plants are living things, right? So plants are living things, so they respond to something in their environment. For example, let's suppose, you are cooking, right? And the stove is very hot, and you accidentally, place your hand, on the stove, right, where it's really hot. So what's going to happen, right? You're not going to just keep your hand there, right? You're going to pull your hand away, right? So this is called stimulus and response. So a stimulus over here leads to a response. The response is caused by the stimulus. So in our example, what is the stimulus and what is the response? Well, the stimulus is you placing your hand on the hot stove, right? Your hand becoming, very high in temperature. What is the response, right? What happens as a result? Well, you pull your hand away quickly. So the stimulus, right, is you placing your hand on the stove, and the response is that you pull your hand away quickly, right? So why did you pull your hand away quickly? Because of the stimulus, right? So the stimulus is kind of what is happening to the plant in our case. And the response is what does the plant do in response? So let's take a look at some different kinds of stimulus and response. So one thing that a plant does is that a plant on its leaves has lots of tiny holes on the underside of its leaves, right? So why does this plant over here on the underside of its leaves have all these tiny microscopic holes, right? These circles are showing these tiny holes under a microscope, right? So this hole can be either closed shut or it can be open. So why is that the case? Why does a plant want to have these tiny holes throughout its leaves? Well, as we talked about, a plant, performs photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So it needs to bring oxygen and carbon dioxide in and out of the plant, right? It needs to take oxygen and carbon dioxide into and out of the plant leaf for the photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So the air, the oxygen and carbon dioxide, they come in and out through these tiny holes. And this picture over here is showing the same thing, right? So these tiny holes, they can be closed shut, like this picture over here, or they can be opened up so the air can flow in freely. Now, that's the reason why the plant has these holes. But what is one disadvantage? Well, one disadvantage is that water, if you leave this open too long, water can also leave. And if the plant loses too much water, what happens? Well, it wilts. Look at this plant over here. This plant over here has lost too much water. Too much water, as water vapor has escaped from these tiny holes. And so what happens? This plant wilts. So what does a plant do if it starts to wilt? Right? The stimulus is that too much water has been lost, right? The stimulus is that too much water has been lost. So what does the plant do? What is the plant's response? Well, the plant's response is that it takes these stomata, it takes these holes and closes them. That's its response.